Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jack Douglas, and this is the mountainous desert area near Palm Springs, California, unchanged since the Spanish and Mexican explorers, notably the Romero expeditions of 1823-26, made peace with the desert Indian tribes. Not until the 1880s, however, was Palm Springs able to attract permanent settlers. A few decades later, the horseless carriage had replaced the covered wagons, and as the saying goes, you should see it now. And so we will during this armchair vacation to the Palm Springs scene. Looks like and is a modern oasis located 10 miles north of Palm Springs at an elevation of 1,100 feet. The view is soft and dreamy and very attractive, but this oasis, the desert spa, offers something special. Curative hot springs extremely rich in minerals. The water temperature is 169 degrees, and you can actually see the steam rising from the spring. A swimming pool would be a natural requisite for the guests, but shucks, the Indians had the same idea when they built this old bathhouse back in 1871. Some of the world's famous winter resorts are overrated. Palm Springs is not. It has the expected palm trees lining the streets much wider than average as we can see, and enough shops and stores to make window browsing a major tourist attraction. Of the older homes in Palm Springs, this one, known simply as Miss Cornelia's house, is unusual because it was built of railroad ties. Well, inside, most of the furnishings are either the original pieces or were donated by local residents. We photographed several of the rooms to get an idea of how the well-to-do furnished their desert homes near the turn of the century. Returning to this century, here's a house as elegant as any in Palm Springs. It perches on a mountain cliff overlooking the city and the desert beyond, and its owner here is the great and beloved opera star, Miss Lily Pons. Now, since the house is not open to the public, Miss Pons graciously allowed us to take our cameras inside. The decor is oriental antique, and virtually all of the pieces were imported from France, which until recent years had access to the best furnishings in the Orient by way of French Indochina. This screen is rare 17th century Japanese, and the table is made of two doors from an 18th century Chinese cabinet. This small center table piece is a 19th century Burmese version of the ancient phoenix bird. Here's a section of the lovely bedroom, and it shows the bed designed by Miss Pons and crafted in Paris. The symbols on the headboard are Miss Pons' initials in Chinese, and the magnificent screen in the background is 18th century Chinese. A truly magnificent home, and we appreciated the chance to see it. The lush greenery of Palm Springs comes as a big surprise to the first-time visitor. It's hard for people from the Midwest and East especially to believe that this sandy, barren soil could be made rich and fertile. But the natives will tell you, and it's true, that if a tree, shrub, plant, or flower can survive a warm climate, it will grow quickly and well in this city of sunshine. And speaking of visiting, where does one stay in Palm Springs? Well, we won't have to rough it. Among the famous choices are Ray Ryan's El Mirador. Gene Autry's Melody Ranch is named after the Cowboy Star's radio and TV ranch. At Indian Wells, our host would, if we could get him away from the golf course. The Erewhon Garden Hotel in Palm Desert is oriental in design and decor. It derives its name, by the way, from the Erewhon Hotel in faraway Bangkok. And for a motor lodge, I'm sure you'll agree that the International will do. Yes, they call this a motor lodge. The Riviera is another longtime favorite, and so is the Palm Springs Spa. And there are many other fine hotels, motels, and lodges to choose from. But listen, I want to show you a trailer camp, and this is the trailer camp to end all trailer camps. Bing Crosby's Blue Skies Village. Now, here's the deal. You rent trailer space for a year on up to 10 years, and the lease price runs from about $700 to $1,200 per year, which for Palm Springs is merely nickels and dimes. Anyway, just look at what some of the long lease residents of Blue Skies Village have done with their trailer space. These, believe it or not, are trailer homes. The roads at the village are named after Bing and his co-stockholders, and the village even has a 9-hole pitch and putt golf course. This now is the approach to Charlie Farrell's Racquet Club, which is to Palm Springs what the Marion Cricket Club is to Philadelphia's main line. As implied by its name, tennis is the main attraction at the Racquet Club, to such an extent that the Olympic-sized pool rarely has a ripple. Also at the club, the royal game of chess is played on a grand scale. The chessmen are the size of Tahitian war clubs, and the squares are actually a part of the landscape, red and white tiles embedded in the turf. There are probably more bicycles than palm trees in Palm Springs, and what started out as a fad has become the resort's most popular form of transportation, and no extra charge for hitchhikers. Private planes are also very large on the Palm Springs scene, and at the airport we had the pleasure of meeting the flying great-grandmother, Zadie Bunker, a longtime resident of the Springs.
Well, I'm sort of a pioneer. We came in 1913, and I lived here for 41 years before I ever took a real vacation. Then I flew my little single-engine plane to visit Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. And one of the interesting things of that trip, really funny, was the looks on the faces of people when they saw me, and they always looked for a pilot in the plane.
Zadie, how young were you when you received your pilot's license?
I got my single-engine pilot's license on my 65th birthday, and 6 weeks afterwards, I gave my great-grandson his first ride in an airplane, which I am believed to be the only woman in the world to get a pilot's license after. She's a great-grandmother, and he's the first person to ever have a ride with his great-grandmother as pilot.
Driving back from the airport, we saw a sign that captivated our interest, El Finco's. Anyway, while the name sounds frivolous, the food isn't. This lip-smacking cheese tortilla is quesadilla, a sort of Spanish pizza. Meanwhile, across the street, the white job was on the job. The white job is Palm Springs vernacular for the immaculate white truck and rig used in pruning the palm trees. And as one taxpayer told us, if they can't find a tree to prune, they'll plant one. The Military Honor Guard signals the arrival in Palm Springs of the world's best-known amateur golfer, a great military hero and twice the popular choice of his countrymen as president, Dwight David Eisenhower, accompanied by a very radiant Mrs. Eisenhower. It's a big day in Palm Springs. Minutes after arriving at this secluded, quiet home, the president will be found driving his golf cart to his favorite course. And notice the 5 gold stars on the front of the cart. A quick warm-up at the practice range is followed by a full 18 holes of golf. And no amateur ever did more to popularize the game. Palm Springs calls itself the winter golf capital of the world, and it's not an idle boast. On a per capita basis, there are more golf courses here than in any other major city on earth. El Dorado, Tamarisk, Thunderbird, Indian Wells, Westward Ho, Biltmore, and on and on. And all have this in common. They're beautiful courses, lush and green, and a treat to the eyes. And even if you don't play golf, you should make it a point to walk around some of the better courses when you visit the springs. It's like being turned loose in a private, spacious park. And always you'll marvel at the contrast, the emerald fairways against the tan-brown mountain range. The Ranch Club accents fun in the sun, Western style. It's a membership resort club with living accommodations and all the comforts of the plush hotels, but with horses and riding as the added attraction. I'm sure you recognize TV and film stars Doug McClure and Peter Brown, very much at home in a Western setting. While we were here, the club was celebrating Frontier Day, a day full of colorful festivities. Here Doug is having his boots removed in preparation for the shoe contest, and these youngsters filled us in on what happened. The boots of the riders are collected and placed in the center of the ring, and the idea is to dismount, find and put on your own boots, and ride back to the starting line. Well, Doug won this particular event, got a round of applause, and from this trophy-laden table, a memento of the occasion. The Palette Club of Palm Springs has but a single-minded purpose, to bring together people who like to paint. All, except the instructor, Mr. Han Harloff, are amateurs. They meet at the club each day, they bring their pets if they wish, and they paint or sketch whatever they choose, under the artistic supervision of Mr. Harloff. One nice thing about the club is that the members willingly serve as free models. The artist, by the way, is Mr. Garmour, who left Hollywood to become one of Palm Springs' most successful landscape and interior designers. Amateurs, well, the word is often a misnomer. For example, no art connoisseur could possibly label these paintings as amateurish. A few hours later, it is sundown in this paradise of palms, and now the mood of this fabulous desert playground changes completely. The air is balmy and quiet, and the same moon that shines over Miami shines on the Palm Springs scene. Nightlife in Palm Springs is, quite frankly, restricted to the better hotels, clubs, and restaurants. The neon signs tell the story. At Charlie Farrell's house, the Racquet Club, the elite meet under the stars. Are they watching an outdoor musical or play? No, it's tennis. Tennis by day, tennis by night, and really every night. Why? Well, the matinee idol of Hollywood's golden era gave us the answer later that evening.
Welcome, Jack. Welcome to Palm Springs and the Racquet Club. Tell you what I've been looking at. I've been watching the Mouseburger Tournament. We have a Mouseburger Tournament here every Tuesday night, and we have had since 1950. It's a tournament that was started by Mousy Powell. That's Mrs. William Powell. And the reason it was started, because there were a lot of people that worked in town and didn't get a chance to play tennis in the daytime, so we started this so that they could play at night.
Actually, Charlie, you've literally watched Palm Springs grow up, haven't you?
Well, I think I have seen it grow. I came here about 35 years ago. Now, the Racquet Club is 31 years old. I've been here 35 years. When I first came here, there were only two hotels, the El Mirador and the Desert Inn, and maybe the Palm Springs, yes, the Palm Springs Hotel, and only one or two restaurants. The main street was nothing, and there were very few people here. And to give you a general idea, I bought 200 acres of land at $30 an acre, and that land I sold, some of it, at $500 an acre, and now if you try to buy that land back, it would cost you $8,000 an acre. So I've been here quite a long while, and I've really seen it grow.
A nice man and a gracious host at the Racquet Club. In Palm Springs, God's country is never more than a minute or two out of town. And if you drive through the open range on any Tuesday morning, you're sure to meet the Desert Riders. Now, this group was organized back in 1930 and each Tuesday they slick up in Western riding habit for a weekly breakfast ride. The mayor of Palm Springs is usually the president of the Desert Riders, in this case, Mayor Frank Bogert. The chow line forms to the right, and with this long a line, we might as well have a coffee clutch while we wait. Ah, this is the life. Get up before dawn and have a hearty breakfast while the rest of Palm Springs is still asleep. Well, these folks went back to town and had a ball the rest of the day, but our camera crew chickened out. We went back to bed at 10 a.m. Drive south on Palm Canyon Drive about 4 miles and you will enter a 32,000-acre reservation belonging to the Agua Caliente Indian tribes. The most beautiful part of the reservation is a section known as Andreas Canyon, and if ever a desert gave man a secluded Shangri-La, this is it. In the winter months, the ancient Indians would be content with the warmth of the desert sands. But in the scorching summers, they would camp here at Andreas Canyon in the cool shadows of trees and jutting granite by the edge of sweet, cool, flowing water. The Indians are no longer here in the summer months, but they left behind numerous traces, such as this grinding mortar of the days when Andreas Canyon was theirs and theirs alone. When you're in or near Palm Springs, don't miss the chance to visit this beautiful canyon. But let's drive on to the other sites within a radius of 30 or 40 miles from Palm Springs. In Yucca Valley, you'll want to stop at the Desert Christ Park, where sculptor Anton Martin created some 35 or more biblical figures. Now, these sculptures are 1.5 times life size, and each weighs well over 4 tons. To really appreciate these blazing white sculptures, however, I'd recommend that you take along yellow or amber sunglasses. The Desert Christ Park in Yucca Valley, California. And in California, the words Date Festival are synonymous with the city of Indio, some 28 miles from Palm Springs. The camels have become a standard fixture at this internationally famous pageant. The Indio Date Festival takes place in February, yet we were here in December, and as these pictures indicate, the preparations were already well underway. Indio calls itself the date capital of the world, even though the first commercial date gardens were planted a mere 50 or 60 years ago. And 98% of all dates raised in North America are produced within a 20-mile radius of Indio. The king of the date palm trees here is Old Solomon, imported from Arabia in 1912, and it produces enough pollen for 400 female palm trees, whereas the normal palm can accommodate only 50. Most of these palms originated from offshoots brought here from the Persian Gulf area. The male palm does not bear fruit, but develops the pollen which is carried by hand to the blossoms of the female palms during February and March. Naturally, you can't enter or leave Indio without being persuaded to take home a gift package. And the truth is that these California dates win prizes each year as the best dates grown anywhere in the world. Indio is a part of the Coachella Valley, the valley that can grow anything from cotton to citrus, yes, and even cattle. No, these aren't the desert riders of Palm Springs, but real working cowboys rounding up the herd. And yippee-I-O you all, isn't this Palm Springs vacation full of surprises? At Idlewild, California, some 50 miles from Palm Springs, at an elevation of 6,000 feet, there is a restaurant that is the talk of the West, and by now, the Western world, Robert Balzer's Tyrol Restaurant. Tucked away in the shadows of the tall timber, the Tyrol isn't easy to find, but that doesn't seem to bother its host and owner, Bob Balzer.
Welcome, Jack, to the Tyrol in Idlewild. When you're inside and you look through those beautiful tall windows, the mountains that you see give the name to this restaurant, the Tyrol, like the Austrian Tyrol, which is one more evidence of the miracle of California. From the desert floor below, after just a few moments, you arrive in these mountains with these trees, and you're in the Alps. And in our house, we hope that you will enjoy a European hospitality, which is a souvenir of Innsbruck. The Balzer family has had a tradition of food which goes back to 100 years ago, when my great-grandfather catered Lincoln's inaugural banquet in Washington in March 1865.
Among those sampling the superb cuisine, Miss Lily Pons. Here Bob is presenting Miss Pons with a copy of his bestseller, The Pleasures of Wine.
Ah, le plaisir des vins.
Merci.
Oh, comme je suis heureuse et contente. Vous avez une place extraordinaire.
Thank you very much. I hope that you will enjoy that book. I'm sure that there are many souvenirs, not only of California, but of France that you will
From
find there.
France, Bordeaux, and all those places, and Bourgogne. And,
That's right.
Oh, how wonderful. Very sweet of you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Very, thank
If
you.
any one place in or near Palm Springs made us reluctant to leave, this was it. Bob Balzer's Tyrol, a nostalgic touch of Europe in America, and a major highlight on the Palm Springs scene. In Palm Springs, you may have occasion to visit the modest but attractive City Hall, and you're bound to notice the motto of this fabulous desert resort, "The people are the city." And a few feet away, this memorial to the young martyred president who was a frequent vacationer here, the dynamic man whose infectious grin made the whole world smile, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Oh, there is still a spaciousness in this wide open country. To be sure, the area surrounding Palm Springs is mostly mountain and desert, and looking out over these endless dunes, you almost expect to see the old French Foreign Legion marching in review. Well, many of Hollywood's best-known Foreign Legion films were photographed in this vicinity. But the desert can be tamed, and the College of the Desert is a tribute to man's conquest of sand and scorching sun. A lot of people laughed openly when the founder said, "We shall build our college here." But they're not laughing today, and one of America's newest, brightest colleges has literally found a place in the sun. There are other new sights on the Palm Springs scene. For example, the recently built tramway, the world's largest, longest passenger-carrying tram. From Valley Station, elevation 2,600 feet, you will rise almost 6,000 feet to the peak of San Jacinto Mountain, and in distance, your tram will travel more than 13,000 feet, or roughly 2.5 miles between stations. It's the world's greatest, and an experience that the youngsters especially will never forget. Now until next week, Jack Douglas saying, thank you so much and good night, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.